Thanks everyone for being here. I'm Brent Spencer, the Director of Creative Writing here at Creighton. And the Creighton Reading Series is sponsored generously and hosted and tolerated by a number of different units of the university, the Creative Writing Program, the Department of English, the College of Arts and Sciences, in this case, the case of our guest, the World Lit Program as well. And I want to welcome all of you here tonight. You know, usually when we have a visiting writer, the writer is from some faraway place. And tonight, that's not the case at all. Mary Helen Stefaniak is a colleague, a friend, perhaps your teacher, in fact. She teaches creative writing right here at Creighton University in the English department, and it's our good fortune that she does. In addition to being an excellent and much-loved teacher, she's also an excellent and much-loved writer with an impressive record of publication. She is the author of 3 books. The first is a collection of stories called Self-Storage, published by New Rivers Press, and winner of the Banter Prize from the Wisconsin Library Association. And that was followed by a novel called The Turk and My Mother from W.W. Norton, winner of the John Gardner Book Award from Binghamton University, also chosen as the best fiction of the year by the Chicago Tribune, and recognized for outstanding achievement by the Wisconsin Library Association. I should add that the novella of The Turk and My Mother, which preceded the novel, was shortlisted for the O. Henry Award. And now we have her latest novel, just published, The Cailiffs of Baghdad, Georgia, from W.W. Norton, and certain to be another award winner. And by the way, we're expecting a book table from the University Bookstore with copies. I know many of you already own the novel, but those of you who don't may want to buy it and get the author to sign it later, or to get the copies you own signed by the author later. It really increases the value. And the bookstore is also supposed to be bringing a selection of other books about creative writing too. If they do, there'll be a sign-up sheet, and if you're a World Lit student who needs to sign in to prove you were here, that list will be on that table. If the table doesn't show up, then just catch your teacher's eye and give her or him one of these. You know, here I am, I came. Besides the books, Mary Helen Stefaniak has written a number of stories and essays, and they've been published in many places, including Red Book, Epic, Glimmer Train, North American Review, the Iowa Review, many other places. Her work has also been anthologized in News Stories from the South. Mary Helen Stefaniak, a brief word about the work itself. She does what all fiction writers and novelists in particular try to do, only she succeeds at it. She does it also with amazing grace and success. She is like, I don't know any other way to put it, she's like a big game hunter who goes into the jungles, and in this case it's the jungles of neurology, the jungles of culture, the jungles of history, personal history, cultural history, and she brings back, okay, not elephants or lions, but a whole world. The town of Three-Step, Georgia, or should I say Baghdad, Georgia, because her novel is all about transformation. It's about transformation of places and people, transformation of hopes and dreams, and I think even transformation of us, the readers. It's finally about the transformation of what we are and what we might become. And with luck, good luck or bad luck, what we might do about that transformation. It's a funny and a touching and insightful and thought-provoking book, and I am very proud to be able to present to you my colleague, my friend, and you'll know the meaning of this in a minute, Grace Spivey's prize student, Mary Helen Stefaniak.
Well, I have to say, first of all, that it's my camel. But thank you very much, Brent, for that introduction. I might need to make this up a little bit. I think I have to move the camel, too. Yeah, I have to move the camel. He'll just sort of peek over the side at you, or shoot. So thank you, Brett, for that introduction, and thank you to my colleagues in the Creative Writing Department, Susan Eisenberg and Dave Mullins, and of course Brent, and the English Department, and the World Lit Program. Big thanks to the World Lit Program for encouraging all of you to read the Cailiffs of Baghdad, Georgia, or many of you to read the Cailiffs of Baghdad, Georgia. I have to say I'm a little disappointed about the absence of the book sale table. I know that many of you already have a copy of the Cailiffs of Baghdad, Georgia, but the sad thing is that my English 300 class last night, I was going to thank them for the marvelous idea they had, not so much for being here because they were required to be here actually, but for coming up with this great idea that instead of a sign-up sheet to prove you were here or writing a report about it, they would simply have to bring me their credit card receipt showing their purchase of the book. And now we can't do that. Now you guys will probably have to write a 10-page paper, so sorry about that. Okay, I just have to take a drink of water. Why do I have to take a drink of water when I'm up here? When I'm in class, do I start by taking a drink of water? I'm going to read a few excerpts from the novel, mostly pretty short ones, like 2 or 3 very short excerpts that introduce you to different characters. And again, I know some people, many people here have read the book, and you know, there are also, I think, quite a few people here who have not. So we're going to have to kind of accommodate both groups. So I'll read a few short excerpts, then I'm just going to talk a little bit about where it came from or why I wrote the book. Then we will, I may read another little part after that, or we instead could have a little question and answer period if people want to ask questions. So we can be flexible here. If there are questions, we can reserve a fair amount of time for that. And if there aren't questions, this is the threat. If there are no questions, I'm going to read some more of the book. Anyway. All you really need to know is that, if you haven't read the book, is that most of the novel covers the 1938-39 school year in a little town originally called Three Step, Georgia, in the middle of Georgia, and that later changes its name to Baghdad, Georgia. During this 1938-39 school year, this is the year when a new teacher comes to town and revives the town festival, which sort of defunct due to the Great Depression. It takes place currently in the final years, really, of the Depression of the 30s. She revives the town festival as an exotic Baghdad bazaar, complete with camels. They get some camels from the circus. That's really, and the story is told, the narrator here is Gladys Cailiff, and that's like the Cailiff of the titles, the Cailiffs of Baghdad, Georgia. Cailiff is a family name. And it is a family name in my mother's family. Gladys is 11 when the new teacher comes to town. Now I have to tell you, even before I read, that I always feel a little bit compelled to say something about why did I write a novel with a first-person narrator who is from Georgia. You know, I'm going to try to read to you a narrator who's an 11-year-old from the middle of Georgia, and I'm never mind how old, from the Midwest, and not from Georgia. But I have to tell you that my mother is from Georgia, and I grew up throughout my whole childhood and youth. Every vacation that I ever took was a vacation to Georgia to visit the relatives. We stayed with our relatives. I didn't know you could go anywhere else on vacation for many years. It was a big surprise when I found that out. That's not what that meant. So I'm close to my family in Georgia, to my mother's family. We take her down to visit quite regularly. Just came back from there not too long ago. And so sometimes when I'm reading this, I start kind of channeling my Aunt Sissy. So we'll see how it goes. Sometimes more, sometimes less. It's not always the same. So I'm going to start by just reading from the very beginning. If you haven't started it yet, you'll be halfway through the second page by the time we're done. The first chapter is called Miss Spivey, For and Against. Miss Grace Spivey arrived in Three-Step, Georgia in August of 1938. She stepped off the train wearing a pair of thick-soled boots suitable for hiking, a navy blue dress, and a little white tam that rode the waves of her red hair at a gravity-defying angle. August was a hellish month to step off the train in Georgia, although it was nothing, she said, compared to the 119 degrees that greeted her when she got off the boat one time in a place she called Al-Basra. I believe her remark irritated some of the people gathered to welcome her on the burned grass alongside the tracks. When folks are sweating through their shorts, they don't like to hear that this is nothing compared to someplace else. Irritated or not, the majority of those present were inclined to see the arrival of the new school teacher in a positive light. Hard times were still upon us in 1938, but like my mama said, we weren't no poorer than we'd ever been, and the citizens of Three-Step were in the mood for a little excitement. Miss Spivey looked like just the right person to give it to them. She was, by almost anyone's standards, a woman of the world. She'd gone to boarding school since she was 6 years old. She studied French in Paris and drama in London, and during what she called a fruitful intermission in her formal education, she had traveled extensively in the Near East and Africa with a friend of her grandmother's, one Janet Miller, who was a medical doctor from Nashville, Tennessee. After her travels with Dr. Miller, Miss Spivey continued her education by attending Barnard College in New York City. She told us all that at school the first day. When my little brother Ralphard asked, what did she study at Barnard College? Miss Spivey explained that Barnard, which she wrote on the blackboard, was the sister school of Columbia University, of which she expected we all had heard. It was there, she told us, in the midst of trying to find her true mission in life, that she wandered one afternoon into a lecture by the famous John Dewey, who was talking about his famous book, Democracy in Education. Professor Dewey was in his 70s by then, Miss Spivey said, but he still liked to chat with students after a lecture, especially female students, she added, sometimes over coffee, and see in their eyes the fire his words could kindle. It was after this lecture and subsequent coffee that Miss Spivey had marched to the Teachers College and signed up all aflame. 2 years later, she told a cheery blue-suited woman from the WPA that she wanted to bring democracy and education to the poorest, darkest, most remote and forgotten corner of America. They sent her to Three-Step, Georgia. Now, one thing about this book that some of you, I think, have already discovered is, if I do this, if I do it, I'll just hit the table on that one. That the book is a work of both imagination and also of history. There are all kinds of historical characters that show up in it, and also some that you might have heard of, and some that you won't have heard of. And also some historical events. I mean, the Great Depression for one, but you know, some other more specific events that these fictional characters experience in the book. And then there is, as I said, a kind of connection to my mother's own family. That some of the characters are inspired by, if not, and in some cases named after, but not inspired by members of my mother's family from Georgia. I mentioned that Miss Spivey's traveled with Dr. Janet Miller. Now, she's an example of a character who is a real-life person, a historical character, as well as a character in the novel. And I'm going to talk a little bit about her again later when I tell you a little bit about why I wrote the book. You may have mentioned if you're the kind of person who reads the epigraphs at the beginning of a book, you know how there are those things. There's the thing about "For My Mother," and then there's also these little quotations pulled from other books, you know, that have some relevance.